listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, March 9th, year of our Lord 2017. You are listening to a Gen Pop Media production. Just want to start out by saying what we started out with last week. The idea of this show is to encourage intelligent debate. So please don't carry any of our mistakes forward. Feel free. Listeners have brought it to our attention in the past via Facebook, email, website, whatever. If you see something that we're making an error on, if we've got a last name wrong or a date or anything like that, or if you just think we got it completely wrong, that's all cool too. Send us a note. Let us know. You can contact us through the Cave website as well. The most important thing is that you do your own research. Don't take anything we say as the gospel, because there is only one gospel. It was written by someone far greater, smarter, and wiser. Wiser? Is that the right word? More wise than we are. And Kenny probably had a hand in it, according to Kenny. So just you got to do your own research, because there are no more secrets, just ignorance. So today we're just going to kind of do a free-for-all, talk about some current events. There's been some more happenings on Wikileaks that will make for interesting topics and conversations around these parts. We have Dave has brightened up the studio by bringing in his lovely friend, Ginger. Hi, how are you?
Say hi, Ginger.
Hi, Ginger.
Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole.
Thank you.
Do you have a tinfoil hat in your purse? He didn't tell you needed to bring one?
Oh,
Does she know what the show's about?
Do you know what a tinfoil hat reference is? No, I gave her somewhat of a rundown.
Okay. And she still
honest,
can?
I don't know the exact level of her tinfoil hattedness, but it's not zero, but I don't think it's at our level yet.
Okay. You don't think she's
But she's open-minded.
She's not up to heavy-duty Reynolds Wrap yet.
Why don't we just ask her instead of talking about her like she's not?
Well, I did, but then you jumped on the mic because we know about your propensity.
Because I'm a mic hog?
That's what I've heard on other shows.
I know, actually. I
was listening to the podcast of another show, and they were saying it, and I'm like, I didn't say it out loud.
Did you really hear that, or are you just going off the story I told you?
Totally making it up.
Because if you listen to the girl show...
Okay, honestly, it's fake news, okay? I turned into OccupyDemocrats.com for a second.
All right, now, is everyone really stuck in traffic right now?
DiBiase has been in traffic for an hour.
Don't you watch the news?
No, hell no.
Yeah, it's
blackouts
because
everywhere.
According to Denzel Washington, if you don't watch the news, you're not informed. But if you watch the news, you are misinformed. Exactly.
Well, this isn't misinformed. There's blackouts everywhere.
Yes.
There is, and you know what's funny?
In fact, the DTE outage website is out.
It is.
Yeah.
I know they had to call
out. It's out.
They had to call out of state help too for everybody that's lost power.
The weird thing we noticed on the way up here,
600,000.
Now, Ginger had an interesting theory because a lot of places have power, but it's just the street lights that are out, and that is causing a massive delay.
Well, throughout Livonia, it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah,
where the street lights are working, they got those back going, but the businesses surrounding the street lights are out.
You'd think they would be on the same power grid. But she thought maybe a lot of these guys have generators.
Yeah, some are and some aren't.
Yep.
Like when I left here last night, I was driving down Beach Daily, and just before I was getting to 96, it was like the left side of Beach Daily was out. Mm-hmm. Right side had power. Different grids.
Huh.
Like even the streetlights on the right side were
at home
power and everything.
At home,
lights were flickering
my
here.
My street is the last street in a subdivision, and behind the houses that are across the street from me is a school. And when they often lose power on that side of the street, and we're fine. Which would piss me off if I lived on the other side of the street, you know?
DiBiase's here.
What's
now,
up?
Now we can get started.
Yeah,
what's up with the punctuality problems around here? You guys are, it's disappointing, to be honest with you.
Allow me to defend myself.
Yeah, please allow me to retort.
If you haven't noticed Power-geddon that's happened the last...
Yeah. Power-geddon.
Or whatever the hell you want to call it.
No, Power-geddon, I like it.
If it's not a closed road, it's a four-way stop, which is the new...
You know, I saw a really interesting article on CBS.com today. You know, when a light is out and there is not stop signs posted, it's not supposed to be a four-way stop.
What?
I read an article according to the Michigan State Police and the Michigan traffic laws. If the lights are out and there's not stop signs posted by the police, it's not supposed to be a four-way stop.
Then what is it?
The busiest road takes precedent.
Yeah, see, there's
Which
two
is-
laws.
No, see,
Which
that's
is
why
retarded.
what we were taught in driver's ed is correct. It's a four-way stop.
Dude, I'm just telling you what a Michigan State Police guy said.
Dude, maybe that's
Yeah,
the
and
law of the
they're-
land.
you
Dude,
know.
but
I don't
the law
make the
of
law.
physics will override it because if the other dude doesn't know that it's
I
a four-way,
do not make the law. I just report on it.
So where do we gather traffic data so I can make this assessment while I'm at the street light?
Well, I'll get it for you. It's on CBS.com. I mean, come on, it's on CBS.com. How can it be wrong? I mean, they don't
Traffic
even-
assessments?
What do you
So
mean?
in other words, when I pull up to an intersection and the light's out, how do I assess which road is busier?
Well, they said if there's a road with 10 cars
Oh my god!
and a road with 5, and the road with 10 cars takes precedent.
Yeah,
and just
well,
pick which one's the dummies.
a four-way stop is complicated enough. Obviously,
Yeah.
For Michiganders.
took
yeah.
me an hour.
Me personally, I get in the if,
10 minutes
If
to
it's
get
I try to get in a lane that's not close to the oncoming traffic. You know what I'm saying? So there's like one car between me and the oncoming traffic closest to me, and then I wait for them to go.
Dude, I got
Just in case, so there's a buffer.
I got so irate I almost pulled the Tijuana on the way here.
What's
a
a Tijuana?
Tijuana,
What is a Tijuana?
Tijuana is driving on the sidewalk. I was
Probably
literally.
would've been safer,
I was
dude.
like, if I get away with it, I'll feel so much better.
Probably would have been safer.
But I'll probably.
I was shocked. I
you
pulled
know.
up and you
We
weren't here,
bail
dude.
you out.
You're always here.
we made one illegal left turn. That's it.
Did you lose
That's-
power at the shop?
It flicked.
Ours is still out.
No,
Really?
Do you want to talk about being over a barrel, bro?
no, I can imagine.
I mean, nothing
You
has
do
happened.
like real work for real money.
All right,
Nothing has
guys.
happened.
Unless
It's
the
unbelievable.
Illuminati is behind this power outage, I say we talk about bigger things.
Well, I think
That was insulting. I'm
think
trying
it-
to vent.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it
And
might
he
shit.
be.
just-
All right, I
I'm
take
just
it back.
kidding.
Finish venting.
I think it might be the Illuminati because they're getting Dave.
It might be. Yeah, they got me all angry. Good lord. So, first time I met Ginger.
Hi.
Get closer to your microphone,
Yeah.
honey.
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
I actually told Ginger
He's
a little
normally
bit about
much
you guys.
crabbier than this.
Hi, Dave.
Kenneth,
Dave.
Kenneth is on point today.
Oh, your mic's on.
Wow.
Sorry, I thought I was hearing voices.
Well, it was
What's
just
up,
me and
man?
Howard, so I had to have my
Yeah.
mic on
Yeah,
just
right.
in case.
I think
'Cause we
Kenny
were
had
talking
a
to
cup of
each other.
coffee or something, but it's it smelled good in here when I walked in, like the kind of you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, coffee.
Yeah.
coffee's not bad.
All right, so are we finishing up our beasts, harlot,
he is. Why not?
whatever, or did we decide we want to talk about something else? Because we could put a little closure on that, and then
No, we can put some closure on. There's a couple current events that I'd like to discuss.
you wanted to talk about
Yeah.
WikiLeaks, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's some new stuff. Hey,
Oh yeah, Vault 7, baby.
hey, tinfoil hat crowd has got some vindication this past week, and I'm
Yeah.
loving it.
What the only thing that I noticed on the news as I was literally just walking by a television was the literally pro forma the discrediting of Julian Assange.
No, of course. So therefore, you know he must be telling the truth.
Well, it's
They're
funny, but
discrediting him.
It was a CIA comment saying that, well, he's not exactly the most credible person. Well, you
Right.
know what? It's not what he's writing that
They
is
say-
what. He's just a dude that is running a massive
Well, the
website.
CIA says that about Christ as well. So
Yeah.
Julian Assange is
Yeah.
in good company.
Well, I think it's important to note that his track record for the past decade or so
Yeah,
has been 100%.
100%. Yeah,
100%.
And I wouldn't even say
because the thing is, he wouldn't have the voice he has if he was wrong on one thing.
He hasn't been wrong about anything.
Because they can never say he's wrong.
So
They
and
just
I-
call
I
him all
just-
kinds of names.
I just love it.
If
Oh,
you
you mean
actually-
they can use our TVs to
if you
spy
want
on
to
us?
find out the secrets of the world, you just spend your time inside WikiLeaks. Period. You will know what's really going on. You'll have to cut through a lot of garbage. But yeah, our TVs, for instance, they do spy on us. That scene out of Snowden wasn't made up. They can just no, the little green light doesn't have to turn
I get a
on.
kick out of the shock that's coming from media in general. You mean that they can turn on the camera and the microphone in our television set and spy on...
Remotely? What are you talking about? On
Like-
the internet? Really?
Said that 10 years ago.
Dude, 20 years ago, regular household appliances were being made with chips in them that could pick up audio signals. Literally. Now, this makes a conspiracy theorist look like he's got a tinfoil hat on, but a jokingly way of saying it is your toaster could literally listen in on your conversations. Now they don't need that because...
Well, they have phones and TVs, computers, and even toys have done this.
There was an interesting story about a guy that had a good friend who was in the Central Intelligence Agency, and the story is being told by the friend of the CIA guy. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt. It's not vetted, could be total BS. But he said it was interesting because the CIA guy was constantly hinting to him, don't turn on your television, especially if it's an HD television. And this guy noted one time they were watching, I don't know if it was a Super Bowl or something on TV. They had a bunch of people over, but when they finally they turned on the TV to watch this event, the CIA guy said, I just cannot be here. I've got to go. And in later conversations, it came out that there is something emanating that we cannot pick up it's doing something physical to us. Again, I haven't even looked into it really other than...
Well, I can confirm that just from the few Super Bowl parties I've attended. There's absolutely something going on.
It's beyond the subliminal programming that is inherent in all... It's not even subliminal anymore. Like that Coke ad that we pulled up. So, actually, while the Super Bowl was going on...
Dude, the Maserati ad from a couple years ago.
That still creeps me out.
That one...
That was creepy.
That still creeps me out.
Can we pull those up? And I'd like to pull up the Coke and the Maserati ad because they are so utterly creepy.
Well, the Maserati's better because it's audio is the creepy part.
Yeah, can we do that, Kenny? Is that in our realm of possibilities here?
Do we have the technology? Maserati ad?
Maserati Super Bowl ad. I think it's
You'll find it.
Yeah, now if
the Coke ad's just picture.
The Coke ad's visual.
It's a picture, yeah.
Well, Coke does a lot of other neat things, but it's interesting that Coke recently are showing the 4 Coke bottles with the 4 horsemen of Revelation. I mean, their exact color. And why?
Well, that's just a coincidence, Dave.
Yeah.
Why do you got to look so far? I mean,
Yeah. You're just always looking for something to get upset about.
I'm sure it doesn't mean anything.
Snowflake.
You're just finding meaning in things that aren't really there. So the Maserati commercial, that was a few years old. And for you listeners, we're going to play this for you. Keep in mind, this is an ad for a Maserati automobile. High-end sports car, sports/sedans to boot. Their logo is a trident.
A trident.
And that is one of the symbols. And many symbols came out of the fall of the Tower of Babel, which, when the languages got confused, I think Satan's counterplay was to begin using those symbols. And symbols to this day, all through secret societies, which have their origins in Babylon, communicate this way. They'll put them on landmarks, on the geography of a city, in the logos of corporations. They identify themselves. Yeah, well, of course.
It's all over the...
It's all over the
all
back
over
of
the
a dollar
place.
bill. There's probably 30 demonic images on that bill, including our old friend the owl, who was around from Greek times, and this is going to tie into the 4 beasts of Revelation that we're going to be talking about. What's that? No, it would have been about 3 years ago.
If you put creepy in
that sounds about right. Try that.
Put creepy in the search, you'll
put
find
creepy in it.
Let me know when you're queued up. There'll be a black girl whispering something in the screen. If that's it, then... And it should be about 1:30. Let me know when you're ready. You ready? Okay, so we're about to play... We're about to play the audio. Now, this is for a car. Yeah. You'd think it's a car commercial. However, if you've been listening to this show, you maybe are starting to get your arms around the fact that, holy cow, the Nephilim from Genesis 6... who are the fallen angels, really did mate with human women. Archaeological records all over the world show consistent uncovering of these humanoid skeletons that range from 18 to 36 feet. These, throws evolution completely on its ear. And the Bible said that in the last days, and we're going to talk about this today, the 4th Roman kingdom, the final stage of it, would have once again the mixing of demonic and human blood. So let's play this because I think this is their way of letting us know exactly what they're doing. So hit it, Kenny. And starting now. All right, we're going to let Kenny figure out what the... Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
But why aren't we getting sound? All right, well, while he's pulling that up, there is... would you guys say, is there any doubt in your mind that... Well, let me ask you this. The first one I think I already know the answer to. Do you guys believe there really are like these coded and hidden messages all over media, ads, movies?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, here's,
All right, we'll pick
here's
that
the
up
ad.
in a second. Let's hear this. Remember, this is an ad-free
The
call.
world is full of giants. They have always been here, lumbering in the schoolyards, limping through the alleys. We had to learn how to deal with them, how to overcome them. We were small, but fast. Remember? We were like a wind appearing out of nowhere. We knew that being clever was more important than being the biggest kid in the neighborhood. As long as we keep our heads down, as long as we work hard, trust what we feel in our guts, our hearts, then we're ready. We wait until they get sleepy, wait until they get so big they can barely move. Then we walk out of the shadows, quietly walk out of the dark, and strike.
I get goosebumps when I hear
Dude,
that.
that has
Yeah.
nothing to do with a car,
No.
by the way.
Like, if you don't know it's a car ad,
Not a thing.
what would you think? What do you make of that, Ginger?
No
She's-
comment from
She's
Ginger.
crying. I'm just kidding.
It's
No,
like, I
it's-
love that car.
It's freaking creepy,
she's on her.
dude.
She's on her cell phone.
I
trying
actually
to get it Uber.
love Maseratis. I
How do
definitely.
get the
That's a
hell
great
out
car.
of here.
But that ad still... the
Now,
hair
there are a
on the
lot
back
of
my
ads
neck
like that. When you
freaks me
listen
out.
Yeah.
with a different ear, I mean, basically, if we're retranslating that, they're saying that essentially demons have always been here. They've gone quiet. They've let us get stupid, and we are the dumbest generation that has ever walked the earth. But we actually think we're the smartest, which, that's unbelievable. And they are. I think they're about to strike. I think it's what is coming up on the earth will make men's hearts fail for fear. Think about that. I think it's coming soon. You guys disagree?
No.
I think it's coming.
Can't say I disagree with that.
Why would Maserati...
Define soon.
Sometime in September.
Somewhere around
That's
the,
an old joke.
around the
Always
23rd
September. Yeah,
ish.
always September.
Look, that's a great question. If you go from, I want to say it was the Sermon on the Mount, this was after Jesus Christ reappears, after he's been resurrected. He basically talks about a number of things that are going to happen, and the generation that sees the reestablishment of Israel will see all of these things. Now, that's our generation. Generation in the Bible is defined as 70 years. So if you go 70 years from 1948, that means we're going to start to see this by 2018. There's an argument that could be made that we're looking at 70 years from 1967, which is the year that Israeli army marched in and retook Jerusalem, which is God's city, in which case we'd be looking at 2033. Now, it's just a theory. We won't know until after the fact. But to answer your question, I would suspect we're going to see some pretty crazy stuff sometime between 2018 and 2033. That's my personal theory. What do you guys think about that?
I think we've already seen a
Well, I
lot
think
of,
we're
a
seeing
lot
the
of crazy
beginning
stuff.
of crazy stuff.
Like,
And if-
what in your mind is crazy
Well,
stuff?
Europe's been invaded. They're trying to invade us. You look at the continent of Africa.
Yeah, the whole right is wrong thing.
Well, that part of it too.
You know, I mean,
up
that's
is down, down is up. That whole
up
thing.
is down, down is up.
But physical things that are going on. I mean, you look at the amount of suffering worldwide and the state of just chaos everywhere. Now we're a little removed from it here. Thank God we're insulated. But you see something like, the power goes out for 2 days, what that causes. Now imagine that being permanent. And you'll start seeing that stuff here too.
Yeah.
You'll start seeing it here too. But I think we've just become so desensitized to violence and things like
Through
this
movies
through
and
everything,
television
and just
and,
the fact that it's commonplace anymore.
Yeah.
Like if you picked up your phone right now and saw that somebody rammed a bus through a crowd of 200 people, killing most of them, would you be shocked?
No, I'd be looking for a cat video.
Yeah, you would not be shocked, and this is what I mean. So I think we're already starting to see the craziness. We're just not.
Oh, we're seeing it.
We just
We're
don't
seeing
react to it
everywhere,
like maybe we would have 50 years ago.
Yeah, look, one of the first, I'm sure it's not the first because the forces behind this have been at work for thousands of years, but I go back to the Titanic sinking, which was totally softly predicted 20 years before in that book called The Titan, by the way. That's more of the first modern day version of this predictive programming. But when that event happened, it was the headline of every newspaper. But if a ship were to sink today with 1,500 passengers on it, I think it'd be a big story, but it would come and go in a day or two. It wouldn't last 100 years like the sinking of the Titanic has lasted. I believe.
No, I agree with that.
I think it'll last a couple months.
It would only stay in the news for very long if it was something deliberately done. If it was some kind of attack, then they'd talk about it for a while. But if it was just some accident, malfunction, or operator error, and a ship sunk,
how long was the
1,500
Indonesian, Philippine, the
Flight 370?
The big tsunami that flooded, killed 200 and some thousand people?
Oh, Indonesia. That's
a distant memory now.
Yeah.
In fact, I was teasing or joking with Ginger on the way up here because I had someone comment on our YouTube page on one of the movies, the 9/11 movie, and they asked, what month did 9/11 happen in? I don't know if they were like literally teasing me or if we are something that big is already so far removed that it just doesn't even register for some people.
What month? No, I was kidding.
Had to be a joke.
It's October, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. One of the quotes, though, that's going to be in the 401 book is, we are drowning in information and starved for knowledge. And that was 40 years ago that it was said. And it's so true. Like, there is so much information coming at us from every angle that it's almost like we just put on our own little filters and just block everything out that's outside of our own little comfort zone. Like, Dancing with the Stars, that's in my comfort zone.
Not in mine. Sorry.
Well, I know it.
Not in my comfort zone, sir.
Yeah, but if you look at the demo numbers
for the record,
that show, it's in the comfort zone of millions of people.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is sad. That's really sad.
Yeah, it's easier for me to figure out what shows not to watch. The easy way is if anybody in my family on one entire side is talking about it, I know I'll hate it.
Then don't watch it.
I know it'll be a complete waste of my time.
There are a lot of shows that I'll watch, and yes, I do get entertainment value out of it. But there are some shows that are clearly messaging systems. An example is Zombieland. You guys ever seen? What are you laughing about?
We were talking about Tony texted us. Said Gordon Lightfoot would have had to write a song about it
for it to be memorable.
Oh, because of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Good song to boot. Oh, he's in Arizona, right?
I don't know. Still, maybe.
Must be.
Hi, Tony.
Probably partying if he's in Arizona.
So if he's in Arizona, he's not coming in today. Wasn't he going to miss a week or two, or is it one?
Miss 2 shows.
Oh, so this is the second.
Still there. He's not cold.
That's true.
I know that much.
What were you just talking about? Something.
Television shows you were talking about.
I was talking about Zombieland.
Zombieland.
So I'm every now and then
You're talking about Woody Harrelson Zombieland?
Yes,
movie?
Yes.
Awesome movie.
That is an awesome movie.
All right, so I wanted to see something. I wanted to laugh a little bit and just take my mind off of things because sometimes we just got to shut this off because it's just can be overwhelming. And within the first 10 seconds of the movie, if you guys notice, if you remember the beginning, they're in Washington D.C. The Capitol's in the background, and there's what would look like some sort of a congressman or senator, maybe even the president is gone Zombieville and he's attacking somebody. Do you guys remember the opening scene?
Yeah.
All right. Then the camera starts to pull back. All right. Now we see the Capitol from above. We're starting to pull back from D.C. And it's only on screen for about 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. There's a point as it pulls back. What you have is not the layout of Washington, D.C., but you've got the Masonic caliper and what's that thing called?
That's the compass and the square.
Compass and square, and that's the layout of D.C. So then immediately I'm like, going to have to pay attention because now we know there will be clues all throughout this movie, and there actually are. But it's still freaking hilarious. But there's something to be learned from even watching things that emanate from the dark side.
Agreed.
A lot of their plans
agreed.
actually are... And I did. Have you guys ever? So if we acknowledge that it's there, is it there because it's a communication system amongst themselves? Is it there because they're mocking us, or is it there because there's some sort of cosmic law that they have to announce what they're going to do?
They're mocking us.
Yeah, I think it's pride-driven.
Yeah.
Considering much of their motivation is pride-driven. So, yeah, I think that's boasting, it's mocking. There may be some unwritten cosmic law that they have to divulge. I don't know. I mean...
I don't think they're using it as a communication device.
Yeah, I think...
I don't think they need to...
It's like, ha, 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 see, and then just throw it out there.
It's like, look, because
and, we've talked about this before here, where, they predict something, say, like in The Simpsons, so then later on they can use that as a recruiting tool or leverage or whatever. Say, see, this is what we are capable of. Kind of a motivation.
Well, as you're ascending up the degrees or the ladders of Freemasonry, for instance, you start to be let in on some of these secrets, and it would be an awesome if you're not in touch with the warnings the Bible has about these societies. It would be a display of power that would mesmerize me. Like, holy cow, I'm part of a system that has essentially bases of operation all over the world. We control the world. We control money. And they're telling me to look for some special messages on some ad that's going to appear in the Super Bowl. And then it happens, and it's already been interpreted before the fact for you. That would impress me.
Yeah, it's power.
As if I was just a dummy.
Yeah, that emanates power for sure. Especially when it comes to transcending time, like predicting the future, right? Like this kind of stuff. If presented with that, and like you said, if you're not to a point where you reject it outright and then walk out, but yet you're mesmerized by it, yeah, I mean, I think there's you can achieve power through those channels for sure, which is the attraction of it. Because once you get some of that power, then you want more.
Well, I think that's maybe the most important warning in there, which is it's not money in and of itself. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil. And what drives the membership in these society. I mean, you can say it's a lot, it's charity and it's this and that. But at the end of the day, you're going in there, early on you're there because you want to make business contacts and rub elbows with the most powerful and wealthiest people around. At the end of the day, you're trying to get a piece of that.
Yeah,
and you start.
It's spiritual methamphetamine, if you will.
Yeah, and they begin to desensitize you from the minute you join. You start with an oath. You're making an oath to something you don't even know, which I think is utterly insane. And by the time you are in the upper levels of these organizations, your life is absolutely wound around it. And your friends, your social circles, your income, your career, it gets even harder to leave. But they do have mechanisms for that. If you remember the example of, one of the degrees is all the members are asked to spit on a crucifix. And whether you spit on it or not, you're told you did the right thing. But the ones that spit on it are the ones that get the gold star, and they're the ones eligible for advancement. The one who refused to spit on it will never go any further. They're not going to kick him out. They're not going to kill him. He just will never know any more secrets, and he'll
be a clerk or something. Get coffee.
Yeah, but
he still gets the letter jacket.
Right.
But
and he's still going to be
he just has to work with a coat check.
So that fourth beast, or the beast, we were talking last week about the harlot, the beast of Revelation, because Revelation's a very thick read, and it's written in code. And as a recap, the code is deciphered in other parts of the Bible, earlier books, and I think maybe that's why that book gets a special blessing for reading it. So it's interesting because that Maserati commercial talks about how these giants have been here. And they might not be necessarily talking giants physically, although I do believe we're going to see that. These could be giants metaphorically, as in these are entities that are smarter than us, older than us, have lived longer than us. And they're sort of saying what's written in the Bible, which is they went quiet for a while, hiding in the corners. Because in the book of Daniel, and if you go Daniel chapter 7:24, I want to say, give or take, Daniel, hundreds of years before this happens, lays out future history. He starts off in Babylon, and Babylon is the lion. Then he says the bear. Again, this is all interpreted later on in that book. The bear, the Medo-Persians, and they essentially rule the world. And these are, by the way, these are the kingdoms of Satan, according to Daniel. Then the Greeks take over, which they did through Alexander. And again, predicted hundreds of years before it happened that the king of the Greeks would die young and his empire would break into four pieces, which is exactly what happened throughout in history. And finally, the last beast, the Romans, would come. And they were the beast that was like no other. There was no animal to describe it. It had metal teeth. It had parts of all the other systems or governments. And it would be the last kingdom up until the end. And that kingdom would have 4 stages. But it's interesting that in Daniel it talks about how, remember in his vision of the, that big ass, that statue, the last kingdom, the feet were mixed with iron and clay, which is humanity and the demonic presence, the fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, are going to be mixing again in this last stage, which our theory on this show, and if anyone disagrees with it, say it now, those little things we see in the sky, something's up there. Too many generals, pilots, air traffic controller. I mean, we're just millions upon millions upon millions of sightings. Something's up there. Now the question is this little green men from another planet, or are these the demons of old just posing as little green men from another planet? And I think we kind of see the fact that these are just the demons of old. Because if they were little green men from another planet, mentioning Jesus Christ during an abduction experience shouldn't just end the experience. But that's been recorded by several credible sources. So when I hear that Maserati ad, that to me sounds a lot like what is written 2,000 years ago, before it happened. You look quizzical, Dave.
I'm just listening.
You looking something up? Are you looking up Daniel?
No, I was actually perusing Book of Revelation, so I can get back
all right.
current.
So I was actually listening to something this week that really started to make sense. because do you guys get the feeling that there are multiple layers in the Bible? What applies to a person applies to a nation. If you interpret something as one way, you can interpret it several other ways and it still works. Have you guys seen examples of this?
I can't think of a specific one, but I think you can make that correlation when you're talking about like Babylon as a system and as a nation. Same with Israel, and vice versa. But to an individual, I can't think of anything.
All right, so I heard a very interesting theory. Now, you guys, maybe Dave, you can pull up the chapter. Are you familiar with the part in Revelation where it says this fourth beast is going to, one of the horns or kings or kingdoms of this fourth beast is going to suffer a deadly wound and is going to heal from it? You guys familiar with?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I've always taken that as there's a person we're going to see in the future that's going to seemingly die and be resurrected, which would be very Satan-like because he's going to counterfeit everything that happened with Jesus. The presentation I was looking at, this fascinated me because here's how he broke it down. And you might need to be Johnny on the spot with passages because I'm not going to be able to recite a single one of them, but I'll be able to give you some general ideas. We've all heard or read about how for 1,260 days this beast is going to reign overtly. Yes?
Yes.
We're all familiar with this. Okay. This guy's take on it was that in Daniel, the 1,260 days represented years. Now, if you look at now we're talking about the harlot that rides the beast, which I think most of us, and again, if you don't speak up now, think that harlot is most likely the Vatican, the Catholic Church. I mean, here's what we know about it. Maybe you listeners can tell me who this is.
Your beast is Revelation 13, verse 12. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose fatal wound had been healed.
Okay. Fatal wound healed. We're going to get back to that in a second. This mystery Babylon, this mystery beast. Here's a few things we know about it. It's located on a city with 7 hills. Rome, by the way, is built on 7 hills. The church leaders wear scarlet and purple and gold, like the Caesars did. It's got a lot of sub-religions, which will be born out of it. But it's still going to be the mother religion, but it will cover all nations and all languages. For some reason, this system says, I sit as a queen. I still have a hard time making sense of that, except it's just the opposite of the body of Christ, which is like a widowed woman. It's waiting for its, the husband, the bridegroom, i.e. Jesus, to show up. It will be the largest religious organization in the world. It will be the richest. It uses a golden cup in its rituals. This religious system will have killed more Jesus followers than any other. It will use pagan symbols in its capital. And leaders of all the nations will have conferred with this. And I do find it interesting, when any leader goes to the Vatican to meet the Pope, do you find it odd that, like, our own president would kneel down and kiss the ring of another man? Think about that. The quote-unquote leader of the free world kneels down before someone to kiss his ring. Is that strange to anybody?
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah, it's strange.
He also kneels down before the Queen of England. In fact, when he was knighted, he knelt down and or something was bestowed on him. I do find that also strange. Could you imagine Putin coming to the United States and kneeling down before our president and kissing his ring?
No. I can almost guarantee that would not
But you tell
happen.
that to an average American, it just goes right over their head. But when you look at it from a different angle, it all of a sudden becomes, you're right. That is weird.
Yeah.
Why would the leader of a free republic be kissing other leaders' rings and kneeling before them? Yeah, a little hint is in there. All right, so we just did some descriptors. Now this guy goes into, I forgot his name momentarily, but he breaks down, this is probably I probably know less about, I shouldn't even be talking about this. We're talking about the Middle Ages. His correlation was that in the book of Daniel, the 1,260 days are actually days of years, meaning 1,260 years. He then works back, so we know that Constantine begins rule as a Caesar, ends rule as a pope. That the transition is made in his time, which I think we're talking 320 BC, AD, I mean, give or take.
Okay.
Roughly. A few more Caesar popes later, in 508. Now, this is written in Daniel, that not in these words. It's kind of written in code, and this is where I might need help with the passages. So there's this barbarian pagan king. His name is Clovis, and he's got vast parts of Europe under his thumb. And he is the first pagan king that essentially acknowledges the Vatican. He himself converts. He gets baptized in 496, give or take. 508, he basically says, Pope's in charge. We're adopting Catholicism / Christianity as our religion. And when you say barbarian, it's not a great word, because when we think of barbarians, we think of an unruly mass of disorganized guys that go ba, 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 barbarian. But actually, these were organized cultures, organized nations at the time. And this guy was operating, his subdivisions would, the Anglo-Saxons would become England, Ireland. The Visigoths would become, I think it's Spain. The Merovingians and the Basques would become France. He anoints essentially the Vatican in 508 AD. You flash forward 1,260 years, and actually you need a few more years, and I don't think God's inexact. He is precise. But it is interesting that at 1798, under Napoleon, that is when his general, and if, I don't know his first name, maybe you can get it, I want to say Berthier, puts Pius VI under arrest. Basically, they kill the Vatican. And you can read articles at the time like, the Vatican's dead. It's over. Their power is completely gone. In fact, I wrote one. This is from a historian, George Trevor. He had a book called Rome, From the Fall of the Western Empire, and this is on page 439, 440 of this book. He wrote, "The papacy was extinct. Not a vestige of its existence remained, and among all the Roman Catholic powers, not a finger was stirred in its defense. The eternal city had no longer prince or pontiff." Now that's after 1798. And there were several other articles basically using similar words like the papacy is dead. Seemingly dead. Because it would be resurrected as we see today. It is, in fact, the biggest organized religion on the planet. So his take on this was the mortal wound that was healed, which there are different arguments on when it would have been healed, but one of the theories is it gets healed in 1929 when Vatican City is recognized as its own nation, and from there the popes actually are also known as kings. They are kings of Vatican City. We are on the 7th one since 1929. And there's another part of Revelation, because John, the Revelator, has been taken into the future. He's seeing this unfold in a vision of some sort. Don't ask me how this happens. Because he also says that of these last kings of the harlot, one is coming. He is one of the original 5, and he's like the 8, but he's not. The 5th was Pope John Paul II, and there is that 24/7 video camera on his casket. We know cloning technology exists, and this guy's image, that is his, I'll use your vernacular, Dave, his meat suit, his image, is going to be powered by the spirit of the beast. It's going to be the image that has, the beast is going to come up in it. And there are a lot of deep theologians that expect to see a resurrected John Paul II. And here again, this is where what's happening to nations like the Vatican, it's a fractal. It will also we will see the same series of events unfold, so that no matter how you interpreted it, you're going to be right. And I think that's one of the unbelievable genius elements that's written into this book. Yo. Oh, you saying hi or 5 minutes?
If I was saying hi, I'd do this.
So, no, you got to say it, not write it. If Pope John Paul did resurrect, like I said, my mom would believe what he had to say over anything written anywhere else. All right. Ginger has just sent in a written message. Where are the bathrooms? Oh, they're down the hall to the right. No, I'm kidding.
Right there.
So
Read my writing.
his take on this was that there's going to be the 4th beast. We've gone from Daniel 7. There are going to be 4 beasts. All this was written before it happened.
Have you read that?
The Nag Hammadi proves that this was written before it happened. And it's not like the Nag Hammadi, which we date back to 200, 300. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls, date back to 200-300 BC. We have found fragments of those scrolls that are much older, and they just perfectly match up. So you can make an argument that this goes back to the days of Daniel, which I want to say 700, 500 BC, somewhere in there-ish. So this last kingdom will have 4 stages, and one of those stages is its 1,260-day reign, which our little unnamed analyzer, he looked at it as 1,260 years, which kind of follows history perfectly. But I also think that will repeat in the tribulation, where there really will be 1,260 days, times and a half time, and 42 months, all equaling 3.5 years, where that harlot is going to rule overtly. The whole world is going to, for some reason, is going to think this thing's in charge, this beast, this king of this system. And at the end of those 3.5 years, the way I read it, that's when the abomination of desolation happens, where someone rolls into the Holy of Holies and says, "I'm God," and that's when all hell is going to rain down on Jerusalem. Right at that's when they say, like, "Get out of here immediately! You don't even go home. Get to the mountains." And I actually think both will happen. One has, but I think we'll see it again. Like it's a miniaturized version of the bigger story. All right, I've done too much talking. What do you guys have to say about all this?
No, that's the first time I've heard that. That's actually really interesting, because my understanding of the 1,260 days, as it refers to the abomination of desolation, is there'll be something put in place in the temple that hasn't been built yet. That will be some pagan idol. And from that day, you could sit there and mark your calendar 1,260 days. That's when JC will be back.
That I agree with. And that I do believe 1,260-day calendar days, not code for years or weeks of years. I think that will also happen. The way this guy laid it out, you can't deny it. I mean, it was...
Well, stories are often repeated in the Bible.
Well, it's pattern.
It's a pattern, so I think absolutely that the 1,200 there will be 1,260 literal days.
Yeah. But if it matched up with
if it matched up with the fact that it was 1,260 years from something else, wouldn't surprise me in the least. Wouldn't surprise me in the least.
One thing we'll leave you with before the break, this stage of the beast was going to try and change times and calendars and days. It's interesting because in 508, that is also the year that we adopted the AD calendar, the
Gregorian calendar.
And what has the Catholic Church, in a sense, done? Has it changed the law? But what are the God's laws? Do we know what they are? What do we call them? What comes to mind?
Divine law, right?
Well, 10 Commandments.
10 Commandments. That's the first thing. Okay. Now, if you want to follow the Catholic Church, you've got to break, off the top of my head, several laws. Starting with number 1, no other gods before me. In fact, Peter, the founder of the Catholic Church, it was Acts 10:26. Someone kneels down in front of Peter. He's like, no, you don't praise me. He's the first pope, quote. Flash forward, Dave, where we saw those things where now people kneel down and praise the pope specifically. Okay.
Yeah, you can't be a priest if you don't.
Yeah.
Okay. One rule being broken there. It says no heavenly image or heavenly... Now, the Bible's pretty clear. Just no heavenly images or things that are of heaven should be... But what does every Catholic walk around with?
Cross.
And not just a crucifix. We're catching the leader of the universe in his worst possible moment. And the example we've used, you've got a son. If heaven forbid something happens to him, are you going to walk around with a chain of, let's say he died in a car accident, are you going to walk around with a picture of a smashed car in his bloody body? Is that going to be your remembrance? Hell no. That's mocking us right there. And, my mom, she's Catholic. She's got these images of Jesus Christ himself, bloody and beaten. That's the image that lasts. Another rule, keep holy the Sabbath. That's one of the 10 Commandments. But guess who changed the day of worship from Saturday to Sunday?
Yeah.
Don't call anyone father. What do we call everyone that leads? Don't call anyone teacher. Don't wear ornate garments when you're talking about the Bible. And what is the vicar of Christ mean?
The substitute.
The substitute of Christ. The antichristo. The antichrist. And then, of course, the Filiae Dei, what is the term? You knew it. The Latin name of the Vicar of Christ.
Oh, that I don't know, but I know you can do gematria on it. It equals 666.
666. And, the 666 is the number of a system. It's the number of a government. You add up the Roman numerals, the first 6 of them, and they are 666. For me, there's just no doubt that the Roman Empire, it never died. It never was taken over. It just morphed into the Vatican. The Vatican then gives birth to 10 kings, which I think we're looking at the European Union. There's an argument that could be made for the Muslim countries, which all their colors, by the way, are the 4 horses of Revelation, black, white, green, and red. And that church, the Vatican, has been responsible for more deaths of more saints and martyrs than any other nation. Nothing has made Christianity look worse. They make it look, because people associate.
That's a good point.
And we'll leave you with this before the break. God's message to people that get it. So what does he say about the people that are in this religious system? Do you guys know? What does he say to them?
To get out of it?
Yeah. He said, get out of her, my people. Get out of her. I'll just leave you with that. Think about that one while we smoke down some cancer sticks. Anything else you want to say, Howard, before break?
No.
Ginger, anything you want to say? You talk too much.
Yeah, she needs to knock
Kenny
it off.
pay a couple bills.
You're going to get yourself kicked out of here.
Back. Welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. We just got this cat texted. This is the proper etiquette if you get a chance to meet the Pope. So this is kind of
good. Yeah, let's
a little,
hear that.
Little Q&A.
Thanks, Kat.
I will.
Is she coming in, by the way? Will you text Howard and let him know if you're coming over?
Text somebody.
Because we're going to have our ceremonial.
Yeah, I skipped past some of the first part because it was all just about applauding and being polite. But what if the Pope approaches me? Okay? Don't just stand there. Genuflect. That means bend a knee for you non-Catholics. Do I kiss the ring? Yes. If you are a Catholic and the Pope offers his hand. If you are not a Catholic, you can opt to shake his hand. That's what President Bush did on Tuesday when he met the Pope at Andrews Air Force Base outside of Washington, D.C. The ring is a mark of the papacy, and according to Smith, kissing it is a sign of respect and affection. What do I call the Pope? Address him as Your Holiness or Holy Father. What should I say to him? Introduce yourself and tell him something about you. Decide in advance. Keep your answers short and direct. Blah, 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 blah. What happens at the end of the event when the Pope gets up to leave? You should also stand up and wait for him to leave the room before turning your attention to anything else. Smith says Pope Benedict is a warm and humble man who tries to make people comfortable in his presence, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, pretty much. See, I thought anybody was supposed to kiss the ring. I guess only for Catholic.
And Dave, what did you remember, once you relay to everyone when what we saw as a priest gets ordained or consecrated?
Yeah,
whatever
they get down on their knees and they're asked, do you promise to stay loyal to me? And the answer is, obviously, if you're that far, the answer is yes.
Yeah, there's no...
and then you kiss the ring.
They're not concerned about their loyalty to God.
Yeah, well, you watch that whole, I call it a ceremony.
Some would call it a ritual.
Well, that's probably more accurate. And then they, so they go through that, and then they get on their faces, which is actually proper form, but then the congregation prays that the saints watch over them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the whole thing in a nutshell is off.
Yeah, when I saw that, something struck me like.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, exactly. It was
no,
creepy,
and not a single mention that I caught. Of course, it was in Italian, so I only picked up some of it, but no mention of Jesus Christ at all throughout that whole entire ritual.
Well, it seems like in general now, as a non-Catholic, I think you guys spent time with Catholicism if you weren't Catholic at one point. Isn't Christ practically negated from the Catholic religion? I mean, every time they show him, they never show him as an adult. They always show him as a baby.
Right.
There are statues with him at Mary's feet.
Yeah.
It's all about Mary
and the saints. Mary and the saints. Saints and Mary. Mary and the saints.
Well, the Pope did a 2-minute monologue before the Super Bowl, and he actually talked about the honor that it is brought out by sport. He talked about uniting the world. He talked about everything that essentially would be Satan's one world government plan, and he never brought up the one person that the religion's supposed to be built around, Jesus Christ. He never even mentioned his name.
I'm trying to think. I was just going through the filing cabinet of my spiderweb brain. I can't ever recall hearing a pope ever say anything about Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I got to say, too, Benedict is unnerving to me.
Something's
I never had an issue with John Paul, and yet I still had issues with the establishment of Catholicism. I had issues with the doctrine, but I never had an issue with John Paul. What's his nuts wasn't Pope long enough for me to have an issue with him.
That
was Benedict. That wasn't there. That's the one who's still alive, right? Who's
Benedict's still alive. There was John Paul the First, who was
he was Pope for
30
90 seconds.
Yeah, 80 days or 33 days. It was weird.
And then John Paul II, I didn't have an issue with him. Didn't really have an issue with Benedict, although he didn't look nearly as pious and peaceful as John Paul. He looked a little more stressed out. It seemed like that dude was stressed out all the time
because he came in the middle of that whole
scandal
that's
And he
not
and,
new, by the way.
And he was the head of the disciplinary arm of the Catholic Church, so he knew all the gory details
he was
on
investigating
that dude. Yeah.
So that's and
So
it was
who is supposedly the Pope now? Who's the fake Pope?
Francis.
Francis. Okay, I don't like this guy. Okay, I don't.
Well, he's wanted for child sexual abuse in Chile and Argentina.
I don't have an issue with that, but what I have, I mean, I have an issue with that, obviously, but that's not my issue with Francis. Francis really comes off holier than thou. Where John Paul seemed like a solemn and good man, may have been a complete charade, okay, but he really came off as a fatherly figure, okay. Francis comes off like he's telling us what to do. And one of the things, so many of the speeches he's made recently are just like, are you kidding me? Where are you coming from? Like, one of the things that drove me crazy was when he stands on the border of the United States and Mexico and talks about not building a wall, basically rallies against Donald Trump to not wall off the United States, as he's going to hop on a private jet and return to his city surrounded by walls.
Because it's Vatican City's walled off.
That's like me standing at a Frito-Lay's plant and going, Donald Trump, don't you eat no wavy Lays, I mean, it's just, it's hypocritical. And the fact that no one can see it or even question it, just, I don't know. Francis, I really got a problem with him.
Well, something's up
I think he's
there.
overstepping his bounds.
Well, he's got no authority over, I mean, whatever.
There's
Go
two
govern the Vatican.
Malachis to look into. One is the prophecy of Saint Malachi, which was made in 1100, where he predicted every single pope that would happen. And we were getting up to we're now, according to his prophecy, Francis would be the last pope. Like, he's the last one, and that ends the world with him.
But I'm not even Catholic. And I realize that the other pope has to die.
Well, this could be a trick of sorts, because maybe it's the one to come that's the real problem. But if another pope comes after Francis, then the appearance, anyway, of the prophecy of Saint Malachi will look as if it's wrong. However, technically, Benedict is still the king of Vatican City. He still has the throne, the headpiece. He is still the royal leader. Francis doesn't sit on the throne. He doesn't wear a lot of the royal garments.
Does Benedict take audiences anymore that you know, or is he just pretty much
for all we know,
locked in a
he is
room?
locked up in a dungeon somewhere. I have no idea.
Anybody even seen him?
No. But I'll bet you that if and when Francis, something happens or he dies, Benedict will be dying right around the same time. Just a theory. And again, I'm going to remind everyone, don't believe what we say on this show. Do your own research. We're kind of learning this as we go ourselves. We're not right on everything, but we're not wrong on everything either. So, and we definitely all have room to be corrected, and our understanding of this stuff is always evolving. But so Catherine talked about some of the procedure. So here's what's interesting. I wrote down the Pope wears typically this big royal crown, right? And there are 3 inscriptions on this royal crown. You guys are going to love this. Let me see if I can find it. All right, the first one in Latin. This is what's written in Latin. The first one is Jesu Christi Vicario Infallibili. Okay. That translates to basically to the infallible vicar of Jesus Christ. Right. Infallible vicar of Jesus Christ. Or another way to say it is to the perfect replacement of Jesus Christ. All right, that's one of the marks on the crown. There's another one. It reads, Orbis Supremo in terra rectori. Now, what does that mean? To the supreme governor of the world on earth. Who's in charge of the world right now, according to the Bible?
Well, that would
Who's
be
the god of earth right now?
Satan.
Satan. Okay, so literally on this crown, they're saying our loyalty is to the supreme governor of the world on earth, because Christ has not taken hold
Right.
of the kingdom yet. In fact, we've said this before. Who was offering who the world 2,000 years ago on the top of a mountain? Satan was offering the world to Jesus. Jesus didn't contest it because, well, it's not your world to give. That wasn't his argument. Had that been the case, I'm sure he would have said, this is not your world to give. He's like, nope, I don't want it yet. In time it's going to happen, but I'm not going to bow down to you right now. It was Satan's world 2,000 years ago, and he didn't just, go to the beach and forget about all these. Trust me, he's been at work. Third thing that's on the Pope's, another way to look at the second one, the Orbis Supremo in Terra Rectoria. Another way to say it is to the one in charge of Earth. The last saying written on that crown is Regum atque populorum patri, and I'm sure I'm destroying the pronunciation of this.
It's pretty good Latin. It's not that bad.
And that this is who their allegiance is to, and that translates to the Father of nations and kings. Again, I personally believe that that's our buddy with horns and a pitchfork, very much like the trident on the back of the Maserati car. Guys, by the way, something that's interesting I've noticed, this is for all you listeners out there, if you're expecting evil to come at you with a red face and horns and a robe and a pitchfork, you are totally brainwashed. It's going to come at you and it's going to feel right. It's going to feel comfortable. In fact, if you think of every time the forces the forces from the spiritual world show up, if they're forces from God's kingdom, what is the reaction of a man every time either an angel or Jesus or someone materializes in the Bible? What's the reaction?
They're scared to death.
Scared out of their frickin' mind. But when you talk to people that, when they're interfaced or approached by the forces from the dark side, it's the exact opposite. It feels warm. It feels good. You're not afraid. Don't expect to see this thing coming a mile away. You're already in the forest and you can't see it because you got trees all around you. So I go back to the come out of her, my people request. Probably good advice.
Yeah, I think so.
Will people get punished for going to Catholic Church? Or will it be more like you wasted all that time? I mean, how do you think?
No one's going to get punished for going to church, man. You just have to.
Westboro Baptist Church might
Well,
be punished.
a real, you know what I'm saying.
It's a real church.
Participant ribbon.
You don't know
A participant.
It is.
You don't know that.
What do you mean? I do know that. It's
Do
a
you know
registered,
what?
It's a registered church.
It's got a website. That doesn't mean it's a registered. That
Sure.
doesn't mean it's a real church.
Guaranteed they're 501c3. Guarantee it.
Well, I'm sure they got that.
Well, what else do you call a church in our society?
Well, what I'm saying is that it is possible, as long as you meet the criteria, which is to believe that Christ is the Son of God and that he died for your sins.
Yeah.
That's it. Grace got you.
Yeah.
So I think Catholics are okay as long as they believe that on top of all the other things they believe.
Like the only thing that's
No,
As
you're
long as,
right.
As long as
That's-
none of their beliefs contradict that, they're
Yeah,
good.
that's for sure.
all throughout Old Testament history, whenever anyone was in a ritual or a sacrifice for God, if the sacrifice was dirty in some way, like in God's mind, he threw the whole thing out. He actually, and I, of course, can't think of any like good examples right now, but when people were sacrificing to foreign gods in a way, which is exactly what you kind of do at the Catholic Church. I mean, there's like St. Michael's Day, there's St. XYZ's Day. They pretty much
St.
got
Patrick's Day's
everything
coming up.
covered except for Jesus Day. And Christmas is not Jesus Day, by the way. That's just a remake of the Astarte. What am I talking about? The mother, son, Babylonian.
Are you talking about Easter, like Ishtar?
Well, Easter is a whole nother problem, but yeah, when you see a church that has Christmas trees or Easter bunnies, I don't know. Something's wrong there.
Yeah, the Christmas tree thing is they got rid of all of our Santa stuff, right?
Right.
Because I get what that's coming from. The Christmas tree we haven't been able to shake yet, though.
Well, I think if you're doing it as, you're not. If
It's
you
just a
do it, you're
festive,
just like, look, dude, I'm going to just buy my kids some presents. I'm not going to celebrate Jesus through this tree, because then I think something's getting lost there. I don't know.
Yeah.
What else were we going to be talking about? Oh, the 4 stages of this Roman kingdom. The first stage was the overt rule of Rome. We saw that happen. Then, out of that overt rule, 10 kingdoms or 10 horns would spring up. And I think we are looking at what is today the European Union. I believe. We've got France, Spain, Greece. What? Catherine saying something?
And the cat's back in.
Good. Have her chime in.
Well, she said the answer to your question was Matthew 7:22. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do mighty works in your name?
Yeah. Because apparently there are a lot of people that think they're good with Jesus Christ, that he's going to basically say, depart from me. And that I do get scared about that for a lot of people, but my mom specifically. But the woman literally prayed. I mean,
your mom's fine.
You think so?
Absolutely.
I can't imagine.
I worry more about us than I do about your mother.
Okay, good. She spends literally
Not
4 hours a
DDS,
day
no.
in prayer, and 3 of it's not.
Yeah. No, she gets it. She's just traditional, and she trusts the Catholic Church, but she's answered the questions correctly when pressed, and I think she's going to be fine.
If she were like 20 years younger, I'd be a lot more worried, because I do think there's going to be a day where all television sets are on what the Pope in Rome is saying, and that's going to be a really bad day, because a lot of people are going to veer way off the path, and she would be one of those people.
If it goes down in that scenario where JP Deuce puts on a meat suit.
JP.
That's his rap name. That's going to be...
yeah, it's going to be...
There's going to be droves of people.
We are going to be amazed, and this is why God goes out of his ways. Don't get all impressed by wonders and by
Hey
shit
man,
in
if
the
I didn't
sky.
know if I didn't know what I knew now, and my mom showed up and was like, it's all real, man. I've been waiting for you. Come on, give me a hug. We just got to do this first, and then we.
Oh yeah, that's the part of the deception.
I'd be
think.
buying it.
Oh yeah,
I'd totally be buying it.
Uh-huh.
And now I'd still give her a hug. Well, I'm like, yeah.
You'd be hugging a demon.
That's okay. I miss my mom.
I might limit it to a high five. I don't know.
Yeah, it's my mom.
I know. Well, no, actually, that would not be your mom.
Well,
it wouldn't be your mom.
It would be a fake.
Right, but if it looked like mom.
See what I'm saying, though?
I feel you.
That's where I'd be cautious. Be like,
Well,
how
I
about
know
just a
it
fist
now.
bump?
You think
cool?
about it. If you go back to Genesis,
Catching a cold.
What if she makes me lasagna? Can I eat it?
Well, the
or
thing
it
is,
that adds
demonic-
credibility.
Is it demonic
she's,
lasagna?
this thing's going to know your mom's personality. This thing is going to...
Be able to make that lasagna, too.
For all you guys not cluing in on what we're talking about, we did a show a month or so back where we were talking about what sort of deception is already... Do we already have the technology, with the dark side, have the technology to do now? And this actually has been in place for much longer than the general public knows. But we all know we're cloning people now. We are. We've been cloning animals for 20 years. We've been cloning people for probably even longer than that. And how powerful would that end-time deception be? Because this thing is going to be so powerful that even God's elect would be fooled if he did not shorten the days. And how hard is it to... Look, Genesis 3 proves it's possible if you believe the story. And again, I believe this now literally, and I would have been laughing at anyone that said this 5 years ago for me, but I really do believe this literally, that DNA technology was written about in Genesis whatever, where God pulls out a rib, i.e. pulls out just a little bit of DNA from Adam, creates a whole other person, Eve, out of that And we can do that now. You get a little chunk of DNA, you can recreate an entire being that housed that DNA in the first place. That technology exists, and we've now, that is for me that's the magic missing formula as it was in the days of Noah, because all the shit they were doing back then we're doing now, minus one thing which came into place around the 1940s or 50s, or even earlier if you really want to get technical, where we're starting to mess with DNA. We're now mixing creatures again. We're making hybrids where you can see mice with human ears. Where there's pig people out there. There's octopus people. This is, again, it's not on mainstream news, and I'm sure there are some hoaxes out there, but you can find testimonies of enough DNA scientists, biologists, geneticists coming out of the dark projects that our government funds saying there is, you guys, I had to get out of there because something's wrong. This is bad. And personally, I believe we're creating, someone somewhere is creating so many quote unquote meat suits of varying types and sizes. These things are going to be inhabited by our friendly fallen angels at some point when they appear as, hey, we're the aliens that made you guys, and oh, Jesus wasn't the main. He was good. Don't get me wrong, but Buddha.
Yeah, in fact, he's right here.
Yeah. Say hi, Jesus.
See?
And some big Project Bluebeam hologram show will happen in the sky. They're going to use existing audio technology to whisper in your ear, and then through cloning, they're going to have your brother, for instance, or your mom, or your best friend just appear and go, dude, I've been to heaven. Like, I'm there. You can be there too with me. And I have a feeling that's going to be played into whether you accept the mark of the beast or not. Because if you accept that mark of the beast, whatever it is, tattoo, injection, RFID chip, whatever, you're gone. There is no more get out of jail free card. It's over. Your soul is gone. You will be spending eternity in some place that does not have God's presence. This world has God's presence and Satan's presence, and it's already pretty shitty if you ask me. Could you imagine if there was no God's presence here? Oh. It would suck.
I actually can't imagine that.
God, man. Do you guys ever sometimes just think, when you hear how someone dies, what are they seeing, right? How many people essentially after their physical death suddenly realize, holy cow, this place was real? All this shit is real? Oh my God, I've never seen it captured in a movie or anything like that, but it could be moving if you did it right. That's freaky stuff, I think. Anything else we want to talk about? We've ragged on the Catholic Church plenty. I feel we've hit our Catholic Church quota for the day.
So? I'm good with it.
You think so?
Yeah.
We don't even need to talk about the Catholic Church we could talk about an offshoot of something involving the Catholic Church. You guys familiar with? First of all, you guys familiar with apparitions in general?
Yeah. I know what they are.
What's your take on them? Are these real? Are they all from heaven? Are they all from the dark side, or is there a mix?
I don't know. Apparitions?
Yeah, apparitions. I would tend to.
I think
lean
that's
dark
all.
side.
That's all dark side, man.
I mean, you
me.
rarely hear of a quote unquote apparition doing something good.
Well, and it's certainly not because you brought up a point earlier. Because if it was an angel that you're seeing, it wouldn't be some, I guess they could take whatever form they wish.
Yeah.
But what you don't ever get out of these people is the reaction you get out of people in the Bible that encounter angels. I mean, the description of how it physically affects them, to where they can't even stand up, they can't even pick their face up off the floor, they can't even look at this thing. It's like they're immediately, feel worthless and scared and inferior, right? When you're like paranormal activities, like these shows that show, there's some kid in the window or whatever. I don't think that's anything good.
I've wondered this too. I think God, because people ask, well, why doesn't God just come down and do a light show and then let it he's real? Well, I think that's because it can be counterfeited, and that's why his truth it's in a messaging system that you can't counterfeit. This is the only book that predicts the future before it happens. That can't be counterfeited. Lights in the Sky can. And I've actually looked into a couple of these. And we're going to talk a little bit about Fatima. There was another one that happened in the Lady of Guadalupe.
Okay.
All right. Mm-hmm. And here's where I'm conflicted. And apparitions happen more often than you'd think. My mom has been at an apparition where she saw the sun wiggling and something happening, and thousands of other people saw it. But not everyone saw it. And that to her is one of the evidences that Mary, the human Mary that birthed Jesus Christ, is some sort of a force in heaven. And there are other ones. Actually, there's going to be one that's coming up in this 401 book. There was a series of apparitions in Brooklyn, of all places, in the 70s. Are you guys familiar with this? The Lady of the Roses, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
We're reading about that.
Let me see if I can pull this up here. I can't find it, but the gist of it was this. So this was in the 70s, and she is talking, this apparition says a lot of stuff. It wasn't just one day. This was going on for a period of time. I don't know. It could be years, could be weeks, could be... What the heck is this? It was something more than just a single visit. But in there, somewhere, she talks about the fact that this is like at the in the earlier stages of the whole UFO research movement, if you want to call it that. And this apparition said, you're going to see all these little spaceships going back and forth, but just understand that those things are literally from hell. They're not from God. Going back to, I'm going to try and pull this up here.
You're talking about the false apparitions at Bayside.
Bayside. Oh, so you view them as I don't know, false, not false.
I'm just reading an article.
Yeah, I would never get. Get my empirical or my core info from one of those, but it is interesting because you look at one of the ways you judge whether something is from God or not is what is its fruit. Now you take the Lady of Guadalupe, which did some stuff in, I want to say it was the 1500s. Now at the time, all of Mexico and South America, and I mean literally all of it, was influenced by an obviously demonic kingdom. The Aztecs, the Incas, they did their blood sacrifices in public, killing children, heads rolling down pyramids, whatever. And that was the religion of the time. After that apparition, in the months after it, historians estimate there were about 10 million conversions of people converting from their old pagan system to the Christian system. So, in a sense, if that was from the dark side, why? It would seem that worked against them. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Sure.
And now it also could be a ploy to gain credibility for future apparitions, like the one in Fatima, what was that? Early 20s, late teens. I'll get to in a second. That some, I think, very critical information that seems outside of what the dark side would want regular people to know comes out of these apparitions. And that's why I debate them. I debate, are these real? Are they all fake? Are some real, some fake? One thing I do know is I would not get any of your personal theology from what some light show in the sky tells you. But someone is seeing something, without a doubt. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Well, there's an interesting aspect to these things. Is what is the? Because I'm vaguely familiar with the whole thing that went down with Fatima. Is that where the sun actually? Is it the same instance where the sun actually moved?
Yeah, the sun was 70,000 people witnessed something, and this female appeared and gave. Oh, wrong. The sun wiggled. The 3 secrets were given to those little kids,
the little girls,
which I'm going to talk about in a sec. But go ahead.
Now that's different than, an apparition that you. When you say apparition, most people probably think of haunted houses, right? Where, they see this old woman all the time that the legend is she died, 200 years ago. So, you've heard all these.
Right.
Yeah, but these repeat, and they don't really provide anything other than they just scare people. And it gives people, foundation to create TV shows around it. It's different than something like that, where you have an entire population of people in an area witness something, and it happened once. So if there was a message being delivered, then the message was delivered, and then that's the end of it. So it's a little different. I think like you said, there's a mix. I think you could have, the everyday hauntings, which are, in my opinion, completely demonic, but you may have something like this where, that's what God used to communicate with people all throughout. Would either be angels or prophets or,
Talking donkeys.
Talking donkeys. So, yeah, but there is a difference, though. That happened one time, and that was it. The message was delivered, and it wasn't like this was going on the 15th of every month. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a different thing than what most people would think of when you say the word apparition.
All right, so here are 2 quotes, and these are both going to appear in this upcoming book. The first one I'm going to give you, it was on December 24th, 1973, and this was recorded by lots of people. It was in lots of newspapers. And this was specific commentary on this burgeoning field of UFOs that all of a sudden, beginning in about 1947, started to appear all over the place. Actually, if you go back to what the Foo Fighters were during World War II, you've got World War II pilots, RAF pilots, B-17 bomber crews that are seeing these white balls of light flying next to their aircraft all over the place. It's written in so many historical records. By the fact that it's not included in all of the History Channel's documentaries, it stands out by not being there. There's a word I'm looking for, but I can't find it. But you can actually go see testimonies of tons of pilots that saw these things. Very much like, described exactly like that ball that dropped down over the Temple Mount. And by the way, Kenny, if you can maybe pull up can you just play a video on this thing? No? You guys have seen
I've seen that.
The light that, and I don't believe that was a hoax because that was videotaped at the same time from multiple angles with people in different languages, all videotaping the same thing, and they've put this film together. It surprised me if it was a video hoax. Was it a hoax of a different sort, but it was physically manifested? Maybe. But the same way they described Foo Fighters, these balls of light would appear and then all of a sudden jet off at thousands of miles an hour. In World War II, we actually thought this was a secret Nazi weapon of some sort that we didn't know. Same thing happened. Temple Mount, this light comes down. Everyone goes nuts for about 30 seconds, and then poof, this thing takes off. If a human were in that they would have been crushed by the inertia created, because it goes from 0 to 5,000 miles an hour within seconds. Same thing Admiral Byrd saw in 1947 at the South Pole. And then in the sky, if you keep looking, there are red lights circling, and those look very much like the Phoenix lights that happened in the 90s, 96, I think, when the whole city of Phoenix saw something impossible. So, going back to 73, now this is before people start put together the fact that UFOs could actually be demons. Our Lady of the Roses, which was the name of the Marian apparition back then, there's two things that she said that I thought were interesting we're going to pull out. Here's the first one. In this final battle, there are many agents of hell loosed upon earth. They are traveling in transports. Do not be won over to a false theory of life beyond the heavens, other than the kingdom of God. Know that it is Satan who sends these vehicles before you. They are to confuse and confound you. These objects that take flight across your earth are from hell. They are only the false miracles of your times. Recognize them, my children. They are not a figment of man's imagination. They are present in your atmosphere, and they will become more dominant as the fight goes on for souls. That was written in 1976 or 3. What did I say? 1973. That's almost 40 years old. 45.
No.
Okay. There's another one. Same series of apparitions. This one's now 3 years later, so this series of apparitions took some time. Or I could possibly have a date wrong. So look in 1973 or 1976 or that span. And my little note to myself here is, it doesn't matter whether you believe apparitions are from heaven or hell. No matter the side, the prediction is the same. Okay. So both sides, whoever it comes from, is predicting something that I think we're seeing today. Now, this one reads like this. Quote, I give you great grace of heart, my children, to know that many shall be taken from your earth before the great chastisement. Many of your news medias shall state that they have been carried off by flying saucers. Oh no, my children. They were carried off into a supernatural realm of the eternal Father to await the return of my Son upon earth. What I think they're referring to is when the rapture happens, all our news stations are going to say the aliens took a shit ton of people. Mm-hmm. And she's warning us ahead of time. And that this dovetails perfectly with what I think the kind of deception the dark side would already be planning for. And she's warning us that they were actually raptured away. Now, maybe there's a double cross in there somewhere. There could be, and I won't get into that right now. But how does that help the dark side if those two statements, which were recorded by dozens of sources?
Because they'll take credit for it. You know, I mean, if your hypothesis is true, where they're going to come down and the dude's going to come down and be like, oh, yeah, Gandhi, Buddha, Maharishna, they all had it right. You know, Christ, he was one of us. You know, you guys just didn't get the message right, you know. I think they're going to use that to their advantage. They'll take credit for those predictions. They'll use it to their advantage to prove their deity, or that there is no such thing as a deity, that they're little green men from another planet who...
Yeah, what's interesting
I think it all plays into the same potential scenario. It plays into the same hand.
I just don't see that one helping them. Because that to me seems like they're giving away some of the secrets they wouldn't want to give away. And there are so many of these throughout history, it's incredible. You guys know who Dr. Jacques Vallée is? You've heard the name before?
Yeah, we've heard the name.
famous UFO researcher. Do you know who we're talking about? If you ever saw the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Right.
he was the French,
He's a French guy,
ufologist. His life was based on that character. This guy built a career on studying UFOs, and for the first part of his career, he really thought we're dealing with men from, little green men from another planet. Same thing happens to almost all UFO researchers. They reach a point where they realize, oh my gosh, these are not men from a planet. They're coming from right here in Earth. And the amount of people that helped put that whole picture together is astounding. Nonetheless, in 1985, he wrote that the symbolic display seen by the abductees is identical to the type of initiation ritual or astral voyage that is embedded in the occult traditions of every culture. The structure of abduction stories is identical to that of occult initiation rituals. The UFO beings of today belong to the same class of manifestation as the entities that were described in centuries past. And he, along the way, converted. Like, he came out and said, guys, these things are not little green men from another planet. They are, I firmly believe they're demons. He has several quotes along those lines, which I think is kind of...
Well, I think anybody that, and you've said it before, I think anybody that spends any considerable amount of time researching that, a very high percentage of those people all come up with the same conclusion.
There are some, for some reason, I'm not going to mention any names, but, I've got that friend out east who, there's nothing we can't talk about. She knows cloning's real. She knows there's something in the sky. History's been screwed up. I mean, everything. 9/11 was a false flag. Just all of it. Every conspiracy theory, she gets all of it. But she actually believes that these little green men really are from another planet and that they're good. And I just had a conversation with her. I'm like, really? You're going to put your faith in that? You're putting your faith in these guys that are already deceiving us a little bit.
Does
because
she believe in God?
No.
there
It's
you
almost
go.
like she was brainwashed early on. Something hit her so hard that she will not even look at that possibility as a possibility. Like so many of our scientists, they go into these fields with one assumption. God's impossible.
No, a lot
and they
like-
build unbelievable theories
Yeah.
explaining the stars and genetics and everything, and they have to get more outlandish to avoid ever bringing up, because they don't want to get discredited. And there's like peer pressure higher than you could ever believe, even at the college level.
Well, people have lost their careers over making statements.
Yep.
Yeah, if you even want to teach creationism as a possible theory of origin, you will lose your job.
Unless you're in a private school somewhere.
Right. No, I'm talking about public.
Yeah, right. No, you'd be. But
And
evolution's fine. You can teach that.
We get a lot of, the word credibility. Oh, if something's in a peer-reviewed journal, it's credible. Now, peer-reviewed journal these are scholarly academic journals. They're nothing you'd find on a newsstand. This is what Professor XYZ at College ABC writes about some theory, and then all of his peers review it.
Yeah.
Okay? And if it's
Hence peer review.
And they give it a thumbs up, right?
So if you think about it, it might sound great. Let's peer-reviewed journal. Your thing appears in there. You must be the real deal. But here's the problem. Everything all theories, and theory, that's the word, they're all built on your prior peers' work.
Right.
So if you come in saying that we're all wrong, gravity is not what holds the planets in orbit, you're basically saying that 1,000 other guys that came before me, they're all frickin' wrong.
And potentially some of the guys who are actually reviewing the book.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And so the system itself promulgates the fact that you're not going to go outside of the assumptions they rolled in there with. And so you can't introduce the metaphysical, the supernatural into it, because it will undo everyone else's work. So instead, they've got to print something or write something that will make everyone else happy and maybe further their career a little bit more.
Sure.
And it's a wonderful
Right,
way
it's-
for the truth to be absolutely effing lost.
Yeah, it's a circular system, and the thing is, what do the academics say? Publish or die. If you're
Yeah.
not getting published,
Right.
and these peer reviews counts as being published because that's what they use as credibility to publish other stuff.
Sure.
So if you're not publishing and being published in these peer reviews, you're going to lose your job.
No, you will. In fact, there's that.
You're not going to make the big bucks, and
No, you're going to definitely get walked out because there's a lawsuit that's still going on, I believe. I don't remember the guy's name, but you can look this up, where paleontologist. And this is where if you don't believe that the spiritual realm exists, then just look at this case, because when I read the article,
just the dinosaur guy.
the dinosaur guy,
Yeah.
where the school themselves exposed the fact that this is real, because he's studying some dinosaur bones that they dug up, and he finds intact soft tissue.
Oh, right.
Right? So
Supposedly soft tissue that
Well,
survived
well,
millions of...
so his job as a paleontologist, because he's actually, since this happened, is converted, and before that he was just doing his job. He was, as far as he was concerned, 65 million years ago, dinosaurs went extinct, evolution has merit, etc., etc. Well, he prepares his report on this study of the bones that he was tasked with profiling of some categorizing or whatever they call this. And in his report, he made the conclusion that due to the fact that he discovered intact soft tissue, that there's no way these bones are any older than 3,000, 3,500 years old.
Right.
That was his statement. That's it. So the official response from the department that he worked in was that we will not tolerate your religion in this department.
Yep.
Now, that guy didn't say a word
Didn't mention anything
about
religion.
All he did his professional analysis was that there's no way these things are older.
I remember pieces of that.
So they fired him. But see, what they just did there is they let their pants down, because he didn't say this goes against my views of, or
Right.
this supports my views of creation, or that creation act, or the flood is real. None of this came out of his report.
They leaned their heads back, they rolled their eyes, and they're like, oh.
So
it's a
apparently,
Christian.
if the school or the department, these people, the heads of this department, if they read that, and this is a professional analysis of something, this is a trained individual in this field of study. If they equate,
well respected.
well, absolutely. I mean, if anything, he's got the same credentials.
He's
they
not
do.
a one-off story, dude. There are thousands of people
This
that
one kind of made the news because he may have won the lawsuit,
Yeah.
but he filed a lawsuit because he didn't say anything about religion. So what they drew out of that statement,
they're basically saying
is telling.
you follow our religion, which is what it
Exactly,
is, because...
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's what really exposed them.
And what is the net effect of that? Other researchers, do you think they're going to be more apt to
No,
write,
they're not
or are
gonna
they going
say
to?
anything?
No, they will quietly hold all these
Soft tissue?
things
What
that.
soft tissue?
Well, this actually isn't a new thing, and if anyone likes dinosaurs, which I've always been fascinated with since I was a kid, and
Yeah.
even more so now.
Just not Barney. That
No,
dinosaur.
he's not really a dinosaur.
He creeps me
It's
out.
a guy in a
Yeah.
suit, but they actually have. There was articles written, I think, as far back as the 1960s, talking about the soft tissue they're finding in dinosaur bones. So 1964, I think, or 67, something. You can look this up and find out but it's been a minute, and this isn't a new thing. It's not like they just were discovering these
Right.
bones. So, when you say as a professional that this can only be 3,500 years old, and they say we're not tolerating your religion in this department, you're
Right.
fired. That would come as quite a shock when the guy actually was an atheist.
Yeah, but by the time a kid hits kindergarten, he already... Just thank you to all the cartoons that
Oh, yeah.
appear
No, I
on
think
the
so.
Satan
They're-
broadcasting system. Dinosaurs are real.
Oh,
I mean,
they're
somehow
everywhere.
they find a way to put dinosaurs into every freaking cartoon.
Ask any 7-year-old or 8-year-old, that age range, how long ago the dinosaurs went extinct. I guarantee you they tell you 65 million years.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because it's in every friggin' cartoon that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
It's in
learn
Jurassic
something like
Park.
that, I
Why
mean,
is that data important on Peppa Pig?
yeah, thank you.
Just saying.
It is on Peppa Pig.
It is.
It's on Umi Zoomy. It's all over the place.
Oh, my.
And The
It's not
things
on
you
Yo
learn when
Gabba
you're a
Gabba.
kid like
They don't
that,
roll like that.
that's burned into you. That becomes a
Yeah.
pillar of your belief system. And dude, and the game is now on. And now you're fighting. You're now in a spiritual war, whether you realize it or not. And it is about beliefs, and it's very real, folks. If you don't know you're in a spiritual war, you're losing badly. At the end of the day, we talk about all this stuff probably because we're an Ephesians 5:11 kind of gang here.
Yeah.
Which is, do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but expose them. And at the end of the day, there's only one way our soul is getting off this prison planet, and that is
Jesus Christ.
absolutely. He is the only
Big
way.
man upstairs.
He's not one of the ways. That's it.
And
Kenny
we're-
is cutting my throat
Yeah,
off.
we're
Time is
done.
out.
Later.
We'll see you next week.
Have a good week.